So the rematch is taking place this weekend between the All Blacks and the Springboks. Rassie Erasmus announcing his side extremely early this week, which means no lineup prediction, but what we will be doing is giving the lineup that we would have liked to see heading into this contest. Now, there is absolutely no denying that Erasmus has gone very different from Test match number 1. But is it too many changes here? For the box, it is myself, and we have also got Vik from Vik and Wern Sports Chat. I did read you through the lineup before, mate. What are your first, impressions of the side that Rassie has gone with?
I'm surprised. I'm shocked that there's 2 players that are not even in the squad. My wanted 23, I would have never left them out. But look, what do I know? I'm not the coach of the Springboks, you know what I mean? But I kind of just, we discussed before, I just think there's like a plan where he's not wanting to play anybody too much this year. Because the rotation, there's some players on this that you told me that are playing. I would have never put this team together that Rassie put together. Never. Not in a million years. I could have put all the combinations. I could have made 100 predictions and I wouldn't have got his team right.
And that's kind of what to expect, though, with Rassie Erasmus, isn't it? There's always that curveball. In this case, he's thrown about 7 into the lineup. But with what you would like to see, theoretically, of course, all of this now is slightly irrelevant because we do know exactly who is making their way onto the field. But if you were in charge heading into this match based off what you saw last week, who would your front row be for this contest?
Well, first of all, if I was in charge, the other half of our channel, Wern, would be putting on some diapers and shitting himself if I was in charge. Because, no, I would have stuck with the front 3. I would have stuck with the exact same front 3 with Ox, Marks, and Du Toit. Because I thought they were actually not that bad. If I could, I would have changed Malcolm Marks. But then the question is, who do we have? And I don't think Malcolm Marks, you got to trust him that he's not going to have 2 bad games in a row.
Yeah.
Which would be very untypical of him to have 2 bad games in a row. He's not that kind of player. So I would have stuck with that front 3.
And I've actually gone with the exact same. Oxenshare, Malcolm Marks, as well as Thomas Du Toit. I consider giving Wilco Low the opportunity in that tight head prop role. That one for me was almost 50-50, but if it worked last week, they might as well stick with it again. And we also did see some pretty decent scrum dominance at times from the box. I know that there was a patch where we didn't actually get a huge amount of scrums, even in the wet conditions. But as soon as every scrum went down, you knew there was going to be the massive shove. And that one, when we saw the Springboks pretty much bulldoze the All Blacks backwards, I think was kind of the epitome of what they wanted to do throughout the 80 minutes when it came to that set piece. Malcolm Marks, like you said, he doesn't often have 2 bad games in a row. No. And it would not surprise me one bit if he goes out at Sky Stadium and has about a 9 out of 10, gets himself, that's the thing. He did score. He scored up against the All Blacks at Eden Park. And even with that, some people gave him a rating as low as a 4 out of 10. Of course, there was that 50-22, the line out that didn't quite take place for the box. But, a couple little moments switching. And Malcolm Marks, he'll be back to world class. Everyone knows what he can do. But I love the fact that they've got Manus van der Merwe off the bench here too, rather than going with Jan-Hendrik Wessels, other than the fact that, of course, Jan-Hendrik Wessels now playing loosehead rather than hooker for this game. But moving on to the locking duo of what I would have liked to see, I actually really liked the combination they used in the second match up against the Wallabies. So if I was in charge, I would have gone Arge Snyman as the number 4 with Ruan Nokia slotting in at 5. I thought Nokia was extremely impressive up against New Zealand. Yes, there were a couple lineouts lost, but I don't think that blame can all go just on to the lock.
Malcolm Marks was off with putting the ball in.
And it just seemed to be almost uncharacteristic of the Springboks, the way that lineout was functioning. And maybe it was because New Zealand were putting on that little bit of extra pressure. I do think having Arge Snyman here in that number 4 jersey, don't get me wrong, Ludiaga, which is who they have selected, he will do phenomenal in this type of game. But I was tempted to have Etsebev still in the side.
Me too.
But Arge and Ruan, that is who I would have had as my lock-in duo.
I would have stuck with the same 2 again with Eben and Nortje, and I had RG off the bench as well as Ludiaga off the bench. I actually have both on the bench. Beef it up a little bit. I was thinking maybe Eben and Ludiaga maybe start. Ruan Nortje off the bench because he gives you that option. He can still play other positions. Mm-hmm. But again, Rassie. Ludiaga, Ruan Nokia, I don't think we've seen that combination a lot.
In fact, we've hardly seen Arge Snyman start a game for the Boks, let alone with this combination.
how do you say, super sub kind of guy. But
Yep.
but funny enough, when at the URC last season, he played predominantly most of his games also came off the bench for Leinster in the URC,
And he seems to just have that ability of, even if it's later on in a game, just switching to that 150% from the very get-go. So them having him off the bench for this contest, I do think will be a great thing, because the South Africans, I think once some of those subs were made, the likes of Sasha, Reinach, and whatnot, that made a big difference in the way that not just the Springboks were playing, but also mainly that attack in terms of the speed. And someone like an Arges Neyman to keep that ball alive, looking for those offloads.
One-handed passes and stuff like that. He does that well.
I have no idea how he does it so smoothly. He has two men tackling him, just hanging on to the ball.
He thinks he's a basketballer. He thinks he's prime Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when he moves that stuff around, but he does it well. The bench last week brought us back in the game. So I thought, you got to have to, some of the bench players have got to come in earlier now. That's why, we'll see it later when we get to 9 and 10. We knew that those changes were coming.
Exactly. And loose forward trio, we knew that there was probably going to be a change here too. We do see Jesper Visser move into that number 8 jersey for the Boks with Sia Khaleesi going back to 6. Is this exactly the same loose forward trio as you would have gone with before we did the lineup?
I actually dropped Sia Khaleesi totally out of the team.
Okay.
Blasphemy on my part. No, I had Marco van Staden staying in the team because I actually thought he was quite disciplined, which is saying a lot. Obviously, Peter Steph du Toit is going to be at 7 for me. And I did have Jasper Visser coming in because, he's had a nice long break now. He gave himself a nice holiday. And so I had Marco van Staden, Peter Steph du Toit, and Jasper Visser. And the only one on the bench that I had to supplement them was Kwaka Smith, because I thought you could still put Ruan Norpio in the 7 position or in the 8 position,
You see, overall, that loose forward trio, I do think it got a bit of criticism from that first match up against the All Blacks, maybe not quite as prominent as we are used to seeing. And having someone, with that bulk of Jesper Visser, that's just going to make all those differences, because we saw him last year up against the ABs. Really was physical, getting turnovers in the breakdowns, and always, as he does, towing the line between what was legal in those breakdowns and what wasn't.
The problem is, when I made this and I said Marco van Staden and Jasper Visser in there, I was like, oh, that's a yellow card guaranteed. Because, if you put, and maybe that's why you put Sia in there, because I think if you put Jasper Visser and Marco van Staden, I guarantee if they're both on the field, one of them's getting a yellow card.
Yeah, and that penalty count could just keep on adding up. At a stadium like Sky Stadium, we've seen some low-scoring games, but those kicking aspects of the contest can be important. And Geordie Barrett actually kicking for the ABs in the early stages. Yes. I don't think many people expected that. Bowden, yes, he had a bit of a rough game last week up against Argentina off the tee, but to get it completely taken off him, Geordie did kick well, though, and then McKenzie, of course, taking over and doing what he does.
Are so blessed. You got Bowden, Geordie, McKenzie, whoever kicks, you're very blessed there. It's not New Zealand don't have a problem for somebody kicking towards goal. You did miss one on the weekend. Could have missed a few more, but okay, we'll take it.
Now we move on though to the 9 and 10 combination. Although I should mention I've got Sia Khaleesi 6, Peter Steph du Toit 7, and Jesper Visser, who I would have gone with in that loose forward trio. But it just felt like the perfect transition to go to this 9 and 10 combination when we're talking about kicks going over and some missing. Cobus Reinach. So I've decided to give that number 9 jersey to. His impact off the bench was absolutely phenomenal. He's one of those players that sometimes he can come into a game and have about a 6 or a 7 off the bench, doesn't do anything crazy, but still, progresses that game a little bit. And also following up with Grant Williams, that's always a hard feat. But in this game, I think he outclassed him, didn't he?
Big time. And you know what I like about Cobus Reinach is that he's a lot like Kwaka Smith. It's a blessing for a coach because if you bring the guy off the bench, you're going to get that 7, 6, 7, 8 out of 10 somewhere there. You're never going to get a 4 or a 3 from these guys. It's coming solid off the bench, and I did like the speed that he was getting the balls out of the rucks and stuff like that, and he's always good for that sneaky little move inside because he's got a lot. He's quite a bulky scrum half, and. So I had him as well. I had Cobus Reinach. I had Grant Williams on the bench. So it looks okay like that. Yeah.
And then number 10.
Maybe Faf would get a chance, maybe, but obviously he's not in favor at the moment.
No, see, he seems to be about that kind of third or maybe fourth. It depends
Fourth
because
option, yeah.
Vandenberg also does seem to have that bit of an injury that he was dealing with. But yeah, Faf de Klerk, of course, in that first game, hindsight's a wonderful thing. You know, you look at it and you'd say now, had they had the opportunity again, knowing how Grant Williams would have played, they probably would have put either Reinach in the starting lineup or maybe even gone with that experience of Faf de Klerk. It seemed like at the start of the game, there was a little bit more of a conservative style of play from South Africa, whereas once they unleashed that bench of Reinach, as well as the man who I have gone with and who the Springboks have gone with as the 10, Sasha Feinberg and Ngome Zulu, that just seemed to take them to the next level. 63 minutes it took before we see the Springboks cross the try line. Now, of course, a couple chances beforehand, just missing out, but I expect a really fast pace from this side in Wellington. And looking at this young backline that Rassi went with, is that exactly what we're going to see?
Well, look, I had Sasha in there as well. I mean, look, I'll be honest. The surprise for me that his backup is Marnie.
Yep.
I 100% thought Pollard would come off the bench, but no Pollard at all. That is maybe for me the biggest. Even at all, and no Pollard at all. Maybe our two class experienced players with Sia Khaleesi together. Okay, I left out Sia, so there you go. You never know how it goes, you know. But no, I think Sasha will. He is the future. We know he's the future for us. Yep. He has to be, because I don't see anybody else. We're not blessed at the moment with great kickers. But I think he'll make the game quick, and he played. You know, I'm a hard critic of his. I like the kid. I'm a hard critic, but he impressed me on the weekend. Him and Reinach brought us back. They brought us back where we could have stolen a point, a draw, which would have been totally undeserved, but we would have taken it, obviously.
Mm-hmm. With these type of players, it's a very much so a mix of youth as well as experience, isn't it? And I do think that is the basis of what Rassi has looked for throughout his lineup. So it's the perfect combination in a way to partner alongside, you know, that Grant Williams, Hondre Pollard duo, because that is also the mix of the younger alongside kind of experience.
Like he takes the computer, Rassi, and he says, okay, those two they got to play together, the 9 and 10. They're not allowed to have an average age over this. So he puts the young scrum off and the older kicker, and then the older scrum off and the younger kicker somehow. You never see the two old guys play together, and you never see the two young guys play together. Very seldom.
And then you've got Morne van den Berg, who I guess is partnering with Marnie Libbok. That was kind of the duo that they tried at one point as well, wasn't it? So plenty of options.
He's not even getting a look into the squad, Morne van den Berg. A lot of people in South Africa, especially, of course, Lions fans, but everybody's like, why is he not getting a look into the team at the moment, you know?
Yeah, see, he had a great start, I thought, to the July Internationals. I think he picked up a little injury, but he has been available for matches where they haven't ended up selecting him. And the fact that it's not even Faf de Klerk who's getting the nod ahead as well, it just seems to be at the moment they've got those two main guys. But I can tell you right now, I feel like anyone outside of those other two, with the exception of Hasim Peed, it seems like no one really wants to see in that 9 and 21 jersey at the moment.
Yeah. And my question is also, love Kobus Reinach, great player, but his age, is he going to be there in 2027?
Yeah, he is already 35. He's actually about 6 months away from being 36. So he's looking at about 38 years old, maybe 37.
Are you taking a 38-year-old scrum off to the World Cup? If he only has to come off the bench,
if he plays like he did on the weekend, absolutely.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, age is only a number. And I mean, look, we were talking about the NFL that I did on the weekend. Tom Brady played till he was 41. So, I mean, you know, at a high level, maybe Kobus is the Tom Brady of rugby. I don't know, you know.
And you could almost argue, because Reinach does only get that bench role and doesn't get a huge amount of minutes, perhaps, you know, he could be a lot fresher than some of those guys around that same age.
I think that's what I think is Faf's problem. I think Faf has played a lot of rugby early in his career, was always a starter. You know, that could be nagging on him down the road, you know?
Yeah, or even just those little injuries as well for Faf. Yeah. And then just any time someone gets injured in a squad with this much depth, you're just straight down the pecking order. Look at Damien Verlimza. Look at even Jasper Wiese. As soon as he got that suspension, even in a time where about 3 or 4 different number 8s are injured, because of that suspension, you give opportunities to other guys like Khaleesi, like Kobus Wiese, we even saw. in that number 8 jersey. But we'll move on to the centre. Speaking of giving new opportunities to players, we haven't seen the Damien de Allende or Jesse Kriel combo for the Springboks this game. If you were in charge, would you have gone with this combination of Damien Willems at 12 with Kane and Moody at 13? I want to say that the answer is probably no.
No, I'll be honest with you. I had Damien de Allende and I had Jesse Kriel in there. I mean, our captain is dropped totally. I didn't see Jesse Kriel, not even in the team. No Damien de Allende, not even in the team. So now I would have gone de Allende, Kriel. Didn't see this one. I called for Willems to start last weekend. I had him in as my 15. I didn't think Willie was good enough for the 15. He wasn't in the squad, but yeah, now he's playing on the 12. So I just say Rassie,
It is. It's classic in terms of just not being able to predict it. Damien Willems maybe off the bench was what people were expecting to see, but then that's also in the situation of you could end up saying that would have been in Handré Pollard's spot. So either way, I think it was going to be quite tricky with the selections Rassie went with to actually get Handré Pollard in there somewhere, unless, of course, he was willing to not give Manie Leblanc the chance. For myself, in that midfield combination, I actually would have loved to see Andre Esterhuizen as the 12 with Jesse Kriel as the 13. Now, 13. I actually don't think Damien de Allende had an awful performance. In fact, I think he was one of the better players out there on the field for the Boks. But I did expect some sort of change from Rassie in this contest. Jesse Kriel was the Iron Man of last Rugby Championship. I fully expected to see him play every single minute of this one as well. But Esterhuizen, I would say, looking back at that first test match, probably one of the most unlucky players not to get a chance in that game. Definitely with the situation and how the game progressed. Just having that little bit more physicality at the end, I think, could have done extremely well for the Boks. But yeah, very different for both of us. In fact, 2 changes compared to what Rassie actually did go with for his lineup. But moving on to the back 3, we do see out on that left wing, Ethan Hooker getting the massive opportunity to start here in Wellington. Out on the right, they did go with Cheslin Colby and 15 back to Apalele Fasi. So for yourself, would you have gone with the same?
I had kind of Moody, Cheslin Colby and Apalele Fasi. We all knew Fasi was going to come in. We knew Fasi was going to come in. There's no one's expecting Billy to keep his spot. I had Fasi starting at 15, and I would have had. I was thinking about Damien Willems, but I didn't even have him in my squad because he didn't play him last week, and I thought, But then again, things change. But I think we'll be a lot more mobile and a lot quicker.
Yep. Starting
with Kobus Reinach getting the ball out quicker, and then of course Sasha does move the ball very quickly, and I got to give to him those little darting little kicks, those little grubbers. He does that very well. So, and that's what we tried it. We got to get, because 1 or 2 times we did those little grubbers behind, and we forced that one-on-one situation where we looked very good. And that's what we need to do. Because many times it was Ardie Savea out there on the wing, and he did a phenomenal job. But I would always, if Cheslin Colby's got to run up against Ardie Savea, I would still back Cheslin to be the quicker man. So I think we got to try to get behind New Zealand more. And we've definitely got to play more with our wings and our centres, because we didn't do that. We kicked the game to pieces on Saturday. We kicked the game first half. I don't even know what the stats is. I felt like we made 1,000 kicks. We were just every time the scrum off, Williams got the ball, kick the whole time. I think that'll change this game, but I think New Zealand will be ready for that change.
I think New Zealand were expecting it in match number 1 when it came to that aerial contest, but we didn't really get to see a huge amount of contestable kicks throughout that first half.
They were just a little bit too far.
Yep, just that little bit of extra distance. And also McKenzie very safe under the high ball at the back for New Zealand. Will Jordan's still a little bit shaky. I've never seen that man struggle 2 weeks in a row with a high ball, but that is something that maybe the Boks might try and target
here. He won't play at 15 this week.
You thinking he's out on the wing for Naroa?
I think he's on the wing. I think you've got to start Damien McKenzie. He was, for me, together with Ardie Savea, I think he was one of the best players on the field. He came off the bench and he really, played solid. I think he deserves a start,
And definitely with the amount of scrum dominance at times that we saw from the Boks, if any of those balls that McKenzie caught had been dropped, you're looking at a scrum for the Boks about 22 metres out from the AB's line. Those advantages could have started to come into play. I've actually made quite a switch here in the number 11 jersey. if I was going to be in charge. Of course, this is not what the Boks are going to select and not what they have, but I would have actually given Makazole Mapimpi a chance out on the wing. He's an experienced veteran. Some people feel like he's not in the greatest form at the moment, but honestly, that's just, I think, due to a lack of minutes. That man can really light a field up on fire if he gets some sort of space. More than likely, he'd be going up against either Will Jordan or Sevu Reece. I actually like him in that kind of matchup with Sevu.
I think he's more physical than they are.
Yeah.
He's a bulldozer kind of guy, and he's got pace, and he's never. I spoke to Wern the other day. I said, when did you ever see a game from Makazole Mapimpi that you said under a 5, under a 6? He's always been solid for the Springboks, but they called him up. And he hasn't had a look in. I do think we'll see him against Argentina, definitely.
And it could just be that age factor as well, couldn't it? He's looking at those younger options. The difference in age between Mapimpi and Hooker is pretty substantial. It's about 3 World Cups worth when you look at that age difference. But, I do think for this type of game, it's been mentioned how Rassi has gone with the younger guys, giving them a chance here up against New Zealand, building towards the future. But also, it's a big risk. The Rugby Championship is on the line. This is a must-win for the Springboks, because if they lose this, there is no catching New Zealand, and there's also, with the potential chance, no catching of the Australians either.
And the problem is, Springboks know. The Springboks know. We have to win with a bonus point. And if possible, New Zealand don't get anything out of the game, because then we're on the same amount of points. Then it becomes interesting. But if New Zealand, even if we win, let's say we win 15-12, then New Zealand gets a bonus point. We get 4 points. New Zealand going to still be up by two points over us. So there's no way. I don't think we catch them anymore, unless our great friends in Australia win, but against you guys. But if they do that and they beat Argentina on the weekend, then we might all be sitting here with egg on our face, and the Aussies are winning the Rugby Championship, which no one predicted. Let's be honest.
No, there were a couple dark horse calls for Argentina to be able to do well in this competition. And to be fair, after the first 2 legs, and also you could argue in their game up against the Aussies, they did look like a very strong contender. But I think they just let that one slip in the final moments. They'll be disappointed that Aussie managed to get that victory, but I'm sure they'll be back next week, and that is what we need to see from this box.
Let's be honest, nobody had Skippy winning this competition. Come on.
No. Well, I think there were the
Aussies. Of course, the Aussies would have,
Everyone wants a competitive Bledisloe, and I feel like this year, at the moment, the way that it's shaping up,
it's going to be
exactly what we're going to get. Out on the right wing, I did stick with Cheslin Colby as well. I felt like that was a brilliant choice to be able to have him. There's no way that you drop Cheslin, and I know that sounds crazy because he's the only man from the backline that actually got to keep his spot. But he probably had a quieter game on his standard. We saw that grubber that he all but managed to chase down on the wing, but they just didn't get the ball to him. I don't think we saw Rieko Ioane's defence tested anywhere near as much as it should have been throughout the 80 minutes. Now, Rieko, he had a pretty quiet game, but he had such a massive moment when he was able to hold up Oxen.
That was big,
that could have been the difference between a draw and a win there for the All Blacks. So when Rieko got involved, he was strong, but I do think that Colby, it just never really set up for the perfect attacking chance. And if anything, it was going to be in that last 20 minutes when we saw those subs made. So perhaps in this game, we could see some sort of risky play from Sasha, cross kick perhaps, out to Cheslin Colby's wing. And then at number 15, a man who I find pretty safe under the high ball, I also would have had up in Lily Fassi.
That's it. Well, sometimes I feel with Fassi it's like he's like Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Sometimes he does stuff that are so genius, beautiful catches, stuff like that, little grubbers running through and stuff like that. And then sometimes it's like he has a brain fart. Somebody will kick the ball and everybody in the stadium knows, don't touch the ball, it's going to go out of bounds. And he'll still try to reel it in, go off his fingers. But he's young. He's younger, put it that way. I mean, he's not 18 years old or anything like that. But I do think he's definitely our future at 15. I can't. And his backup will be Damien Willemse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is this the last year you see Willie LaRue in a Springbok kit?
I actually thought after the summer internationals, I thought we were never going to see Willie again. I actually thought, you got to that 100 tests, you got his Centurion tests and all that. I thought Rassie kept him in there to give him that 100th test. And I actually thought we wouldn't see him anymore. And I thought, because you've got Farsi, you've got Willemse, and you've actually got Sasha that can also play that position. I thought we wouldn't see Willie anymore. But hey, look, all credit to Willie. I mean, he's playing well. He wasn't bad. He wasn't bad on Saturday. I mean, let's put it this way: in the first 60 minutes, they were all not very good. You always got to be fair. And people say, a lot of people always tell me, Vic, you have an agenda against Willie. It's not true. Willie will go into the South African Rugby Hall of Fame or whatever because he's one of our greatest fullbacks ever. I just think I'm always of the mindset, if you're a coach, when you make these changes because somebody's getting to the age, what do? Do you wait a year too long? I'm always the thing, I change them a year too early. I'd rather get rid of a player maybe a year too early and bring the new guy in than wait that year too late. And I think giving him his 100th was perfect. And then we should have said to him, Billy, everybody clapped in the stadium, fantastic. Bring him in maybe in a mentoring role for other stuff. But I wouldn't have been playing Billy anymore.
Well, in that 100th game, it almost felt like a send-off, didn't it? In terms of the celebration, and it looked like it was giving him the flowers.
You thought, okay, this is it, got to 100. But with Rassie, it wouldn't surprise me if he starts at the World Cup. I don't know, I just trying to read Rassie's brain is like, I don't know.
The bench for this game, 6-2, 5-3. What would you have gone with in this scenario?
I was going to go 5-3.
Okay.
Because I had Manus van der Merwe, and then I was Jan-Hendrik Wessels, and then I didn't have Wilco Louw in my team at all. I had Archie Snyman and Lou Thiago both off the bench, and I had Kwaka Smith there as well. But maybe I was a little bit too many loose forwards there. I had Ethan Hook on the bench, Grant Williams, and I had Andre Pollard. I didn't see Pollard not in the squad at all. That is for me. The Ethan one, the Eben Itzebet and the Pollard one, those are the big surprises for me. I just had a lot of the big boys in there. I thought, try to bully New Zealand a little bit,
I feel like that was the tactic that seemed to be on the cards for the last 20 as well, wasn't it? When we saw someone like a Ludiaka make his way off the bench, and you just wonder what kind of impact someone like a Arges Snyman could have had in this game taking place at Eden Park.
Ludiaka looked disjointed when he came on. It was like he didn't know.
Well, there was that obstruction early, wasn't there?
Yes. It was like he wasn't prepared for what was coming. It was like maybe the information was you're going to come on a little bit later. I don't know, but it was like he wasn't quite there at the beginning, That's why I had him on the bench again, but hey, Rassie knows best. In Rassie we trust.
Well, for myself, I have not gone with what Rassie went with for his side. I have got a 6-2 split for my team here. I would have had Manus van der Merwe. I did actually put Boan Venter in just to give him a bit of a chance up against the New Zealanders. I feel like if he's the long-term prop option, then playing some minutes up against the ABs would have been quite good for him to get under the belt. Wilco Louw as the number 18. Once again, I did have Eben Etzebeth as my number 19, so adding that experience off the bench, seeing as that different starting locking duo. Franco Mostert, I had at number 20, but I was also slightly considering Kwaka Smith in that department. So I'd probably say Kwaka, and then 21, I went Marco van Staden, so two loose forwards making their way off that bench, and then Faf de Klerk and Andre Pollard, the experience in those last
I'll be honest with you, I totally forgot about Franco Mostert. He didn't even, I'll be honest, when I was looking at I didn't even register Franco Mostert. Shame on me. I didn't even think about Franco Mostert, but I couldn't have put another loose forward in there. I got like a 5 on the field already,
And did you say you've got Andre Esterhuizen off the bench too?
No, I got Ethan Hooker.
Oh, okay. I was going to say you could have an extra loose forward in there of Andre Esterhuizen.
I can make a team of 15 loose forwards. But the surprise, I thought Grant Williams definitely would be the backup on Saturday. But I didn't. I'm worried now. I'm worried because if the game's tight, are we going to take Sasha off, or does Marnie come on and Sasha goes to 15 for Farsi? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't want 10 minutes before the end, if we got penalties from 40 meters out and stuff like that, I don't want Marnie kicking the ball. And if Sasha comes off for Marnie, Well, congratulations, New Zealand. I think you're going to do it, I'm just not comfortable with Marnie kicking the ball.
But are you comfortable with Sasha kicking the ball?
I don't know. Maybe it's just, recency biased or whatever you want to call it. I still want Pollard at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get him. But I prefer Sasha at the moment to Marnie. I don't know why. Like you said, the statistics don't speak for that. But I think Marnie is a fantastic rugby player. I always say he's a fantastic rugby player. He's quick. He does good passing. He does little kicks in between and stuff like that. I just don't think Marnie is the atypical number 10. He's kind of this hybrid number 10.
And I wonder whether or not, of course, this is the first time we're going to see Damien Willemse start in that number 12 jersey, or at least for quite some time. Yeah, could that be a way of trying to get it so that you have a backup kicker in the starting lineup so that you can open the door for Marnie to be able to start in some of these matches moving forward?
But look, we could end this game, I can tell you now, we could end this game with Marnie at 10, Willemse at 15, Sasha going to the 11 like he did on the, he can go over there. I don't know, because with Rassie, wouldn't surprise me. It always depends on how the game goes. We have to start better than we did last weekend.
Yeah.
Our start was atrocious. What is it, 2.5, 3 minutes, and then we were down by a try, and kind of the writing was on the wall then already. You can see. And it took us mentally, about 10, 15 minutes just to get over that shock. And then I felt I was always praying, come on, halftime. Halftime couldn't come soon enough for the Springboks,
Yeah.
But look, we'll see. It's an exciting, different team. It's a very different team than I don't think anybody in South Africa would have predicted this team that he put out. I don't care if you think you're the greatest rugby savant. I don't think anybody 100% picks that team.
No, because even if you're going with as many curveballs as you can, I feel like even in the forward pack in this scenario, picking Lutiaga as the 4 rather than the 5 alongside Nokia, and front row I think almost picked itself for that one. But yeah, very different looking backline than what we are used to seeing, but it could end up being a great thing. This could be the young side of the future for the South Africans, or it could be the other side of things, which is New Zealand can somehow, just because of that cohesion, that was something that South Africa were lacking over that game at Eden Park. So will this new side, which is reshuffled and has to find that way of re-gelling, is that when New Zealand early on in the game can really get that motor ticking over and try and get the early try?
I'm going to go look at some statistics. I believe for the last 2 years now, I don't think there's an international rugby team, if it's New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, South Africa, or anybody in the Six Nations. I don't think there's any team that makes as many changes as the Springboks made to their lineups in the last 2 years. I think we are chopping and changing. Unbelievable. I guarantee you, at max, 2 to 3 changes to the New Zealand team for the weekend. Max. I can't see Robertson going and making 7 changes. Why would he? You played well. You won. Why would he make 7? But Rassie, it doesn't matter if we win, if we lose. We are changing a hell of a lot of things all the time. Which it's like I don't know. It's like we've got to keep everybody happy at the moment. I don't know. I just find a lot. Not criticizing Rassie. Would never do that. Blasphemy. But I just think there's just a different plan in his head where he's going. When he started off, he always said his goal was that South Africa has this unbelievable depth. That's what he said. We need depth. I want 50 players that can play for me. That's a lot. His camps, he's inviting 50, 55 players to the camps as well. So I don't know. I just think it's a plan, but I'm looking forward to this one. Look, it's a big weekend. New Zealand, South Africa, we can have 2 games this weekend, not just 1, 2. But I think the one we're going to get thrashed, that's with the ladies. I think, look, as good as our ladies have been, you're going to thrash them. And I just hope we can somehow nip the one in Wellington so that I can speak to the other guys that were on the chat with us on Saturday. I need to talk to them again.
Yeah, that one kicked off a little bit, didn't it? We decided, fair, when I think about it from an outside perspective now, having 2 South Africans talking to 2 New Zealanders just after the biggest game of the year.
What did you expect?
Yeah, it was always going to go a little bit in the hectic direction.
I felt
Also,
sorry for you because you were in the
off
background there. You were quite quiet. You couldn't say anything. We just took over. I mean, it's your show, and we were going at it and stuff like that. Hey, but look, that is normal. Could you imagine with those two guys if we were all in the same room watching rugby?
Yeah, like for a game like this as well, I think that the rematch, similar to what we saw between Australia and South Africa for the first rounds of the Rugby Championship, this for me, the rematch feels a little bit bigger in a way. Now, Eden Park, of course, was the big test.
Yes.
But you look at this one now and it's all about that redemption, the start of the next chapter for the Springboks team, not just in terms of this Rugby Championship, but as we've seen from the lineup, the next chapter in the youth and the depth of the Springbok side. And what better opportunity than to play New Zealand in New Zealand with a Rugby Championship on the line. Rassie wants these young guys in those precious situations.
You can see if they've got the steel. I mean, there isn't a bigger test for these young guys now. I mean, is there more pressure now that you can put on them? No. We're in New Zealand. We've lost the first game. The Rugby Championship's on the line. All these guys are vying for a place in 2027. On this team that is starting, especially on the young guys, the pressure is maximum pressure. Now the question is, do they crumble or is the pressure they handle the pressure and we get a few diamonds coming out of it, you know? That's the question.
Exactly. And there are going to be those young players, you know, someone like an Ethan Hooker, maybe with the absence of a couple players at the moment, an opportunity in the future. There's always those games up against Argentina as well, where if you're a little bit higher up in terms of the pecking order, the minutes will be there. And the Rugby Championship, of course, for these guys, they also still hope that opportunity will be there as well.
I think the Rugby Championship's gone.
You think? Even with a win in Wellington?
Even with a win. I think, because I don't think we can win with a bonus point and stop you from getting a bonus point. I don't think it'll be that big a margin. I don't think we score 4 tries and keep you more than 7 points away from us. I can't see that happening. I actually think I think Australia will win again on the weekend. I think it's all about Australia, New Zealand. I think that's going to be I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. And then if I am wrong, it's one of the few times I'm so glad when I'm wrong. But I think it's going to be, and that's why I'm going to definitely, I can't wait for this Australian and New Zealand games. I think that's going to be epic.
And it is only a couple of weeks away. Next game at Eden Park for those two sides. The Bledisloe on the line.
We left it to the Aussies. We thought we won't win at Eden Park, so the Aussies can break your record.
That was extremely generous of you.
Totally. You know, that's the kind of people
thinking of the Australians. Yeah. You let them win in South Africa as well to make it 1-1 just to boost their confidence for this opportunity.
I wish it was like that.
But nonetheless, we do thank you all very much for watching. Of course, like we said, this is not what we are predicting Rassie to go with, as the side has already been announced. There's some big pressure, some big opportunities, and of course, a massive matchup this weekend taking place between the two sides. But a big thank you once again, Vic, for coming on the channel. Anyone who doesn't know
it, a pleasure.
It is Vik and Wern Sports Chat. Be sure to check that out on YouTube as well. But thank you all very much for watching. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all for the next one.